The Lazarus Chamber by Joan. Interrogation Room present. The hum of flickering fluorescent lights buzzed like insects trapped in a room. The scent of stale coffee and sweat clung to the air, mixing with something metallic, blood perhaps. Dr. Glaucodermus sat hunched over the steel table, his wrists shackled, knuckles raw. His lab coat, once pristine, now stained with the dried blood of gala attendees. His sunken eyes flickered with exhaustion. A chain scraped against the table as he shifted. The overhead light flickered, casting elongated shadows over his gaunt face. Detective Holt exhaled sharply, flipping through the case file, unimpressed. "Let's start from the top, Doc. What the hell happened?" Glauc licked his cracked lips. His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "Do you know what a single event reset is?" Holt exchanged a glance with his partner, Detective Ruiz, who folded his arms. "We're here for a murder investigation, not a physics lesson." Glauco's fingers twitched against the table. An SEU, or single event reset, is when cosmic particles, things we can't see or predict, strike an electronic system, causing a spontaneous reset. It's incredibly rare. Astronomical odds. He inhaled sharply. "But it happened." Holt sighed, rubbing his temple. "So, you're saying this was an accident?" Leaned forward, the chains around his wrists clinking ominously. "It wasn't just an accident. The Lazarus Chamber worked. We had proof. We used magnetic cell levitation to alter a person's subatomic resonance, bringing their biological system into a lowered state of entropy. Perfect rejuvenation. Our previous subjects emerged stronger, healthier, beyond peak human limits. We had perfected human evolution." His voice cracked. Ruiz snorted. "So what? Space dust ruined your big experiment?" Glauc's hands trembled. "No. The universe intervened, and something else made contact. 2 nights earlier, the Lazarus Chamber demonstration gala. The Sousa Institute's ballroom dripped with opulence. Chandeliers bathed the sea of tuxedos and evening gowns in golden light. Champagne flutes clinked, laughter echoed, money whispered. The Lazarus Chamber stood at the center of it all, a monolith of polished steel, humming with exciting potential. Glauco adjusted his tie, eyes scanning the eager faces before him. Beside him, Victor Langford, their billionaire investor, grinned like a predator, ready to feast. A once frail old man stood beside them, the first test subject. He no longer looked frail. His skin glowed with youth, his spine unbowed, his eyes sharp as razors. Proof. Glauco raised his hands. "This science is no longer theoretical, but reality. The Lazarus Chamber will redefine human existence." The applause rippled like polite thunder. Victor Langford stepped forward. "Tonight, we show you the future." The next test subject, a healthy young man, stepped into the chamber. The metal doors sealed with a whisper. The hum of quantum processors filled the room. The gala attendees waited with tense anticipation, until something went wrong. The chamber's screen glitched, unreadable symbols rippling across its interface. A low vibration rumbled through the floor, subtle but undeniable. The gala lights flickered, then silence. The hum sharpened, a resonance felt rather than heard. Champagne flutes shattered. Conversations died mid-sentence. The screens in the ballroom went black. Then, gravity reversed. Screams tore through the air as hundreds of guests were flung to the ceiling, limbs flailing, dresses billowing like inverted marionettes. Dr. Glaucodermus's stomach lurched as his feet left the ground. The Lazarus Chamber, the epicenter of the chaos, stood untouched. The pod hissed open. A figure emerged, but no longer the original test subject. The thing shimmered like a distortion of reality itself, its form unstable, flickering like a corrupted hologram. Its limbs elongated and retracted in sickening pulses, shifting between human and something other. Its mouth opened and a sound spilled forth, a voice unraveling across time, overlapping in alien whispers. The words were incomprehensible. Then, the massacre began. A moment of silence before the first scream. Chandeliers snapped from their chains, crushing the few who remained grounded. The walls bulged inward, warping under unseen pressure. Figures in elegant suits and evening gowns clawed at nothingness, their faces contorted in silent agony as they flickered in and out of existence. The entity drifted forward, untouched by the chaos, studying them, waiting. A man screamed as his body twisted in on itself, limbs bending at unnatural angles. Another guest, mid-stride, simply vanished, his form erasing from reality. A woman clawed at the floor, her fingers scraping across polished marble, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps before she, too, was gone. Glauco barely managed to hit the override switch. The chamber collapsed in on itself, sealing the rift. The being dissolved in an instant, and the bodies fell. The room was silent, except for the screams of the dying. Turned to the wreckage, breath shallow. The silence felt heavier than the carnage. "God help us," he whispered. Interrogation room, present. Holt tapped his pen against the table. "You expect us to believe that?" Glauco's fingers curled into fists. "I saw it. I heard it. Victor Langford, the investors, the scientists, they're all dead." The Lazarus Chamber was compromised by a cosmic event. It attuned the subject into an alien frequency. Instead of rejuvenation, it became a beacon. Ruiz rubbed his face. "And yet somehow you survived, darkened. Because I turned the chamber off. The moment I did, the entity collapsed. The subject's body reappeared, but it was already dead. Like it had been dead for years." Holt shut the case file with a finality that sucked the air from the room. "You know what? I don't really understand what this guy is talking about. It just seems to me like a scientist went off the rails and killed all those people. Right?" Ruiz shrugged. "Yeah, just throw this bum back in his cell." The door slammed shut. Outside, the overhead lights flickered. Somewhere in the void between worlds, something stirred. Waiting, watching, and listening.